Hi everyone, welcome to my channel or welcome back to my channel. If you don't know me, my name is Victoria. You can call me Vic. And today I am super excited because I have a book review for you guys. So if you follow me on my Instagram, which follow me if you don't, I just posted recently some of my witchy TBRs that I'm working through. And I did just finish one of them and I just had to make a book review video about it because I really enjoyed this book so much. Now I have to give my thanks to Olivia, the Witch at Wonderlust. She just recently did a video about this book, which is how I discovered this book, how I found out about it. And when I watched her video, I knew that I had to read it for myself because it is just so relevant to the times that we are in today. So for context, this book is basically about different types of magic for resistance. And so as you may imagine, that is something that is pretty handy right now in our current time. Especially for me, this book really called out to me because I feel like I'm in a place now, and I kind of have been for a while, where I really want to help out my community. I want to do more, I want to make a difference, but sometimes it can feel very impossible to make change when you're just one single person. You know, you can do all you can for your local community, you can protest, you can donate, you can educate, spread information, you can show up and volunteer, but when it comes to these larger powers at play, sometimes it just feels like you really don't have anything that you can do that will really affect change. Now, just kind of some background on the author himself, Michael N. Hughes. So he does tell us in this book that kind of how he stepped into this place of, you know, being the authority, I guess you could say, on magic for the resistance. He, in 2016, kind of started this movement around binding and hexing Trump. So if you aren't familiar or if you don't remember, Trump was elected to be president of the United States in 2016. There was a lot of turmoil that came from that presidency, and during that time, Michael was talking to a friend, thinking about, you know, what can I do? Like, I really just wish there was something I could do to make change. And from that developed this plan to bind Trump from doing harm. And of course, he originally published it on this smaller platform, not expecting that many people to see it, but just wanting to share his thoughts and, you know, the possibilities of what we can do to take control back. And you know, to his surprise, it ended up kind of spreading like wildfire at the time, and a lot of people picked up on this ritual, both people in the occult sphere and people that don't practice at all, who just wanted to have some semblance of control. And so he kind of led this movement on hexing Trump and then eventually creating these binding rituals every month towards Trump to keep him from doing harm. Now, if you are watching this in 2025, when this is coming out, Trump is again president of the United States as of 2025. And so with that, Michael has a new edition of this book that has come out. That is the version that I read. And he kind of talks over some of what's going on right now as well. It's a very relevant book to what's currently going on in 2025. Now, I really wanted to give just an overview of this book because I really did enjoy this book. It starts off pretty basic with just like explaining the differences in editions, which is pretty typical of a book with multiple editions. He explains, you know, things that were changed, things that were left alone, the reasons for why things are as they are. And then in chapter 1, he jumps right into, you know, what is magic like for the resistance? What does that mean? And where does the average person fit into it? And in that section, he really kind of covers his bases with what he means by magic for the resistance, but also covers a bunch of different FAQs around magic itself, but also the book as well. So he faces some things like, can you practice magic if you don't even believe in it? And do you have to be pagan to do this? And where did this book come from? Like, he answers kind of the basic questions you might have going into the book that aren't necessarily related to the topic at hand itself, which I really liked because I think this makes it a very approachable book for people who aren't even in the magical space. Somebody that has never picked up an occult book, who doesn't know anything about, you know, witchcraft or casting spells or these rituals, could easily pick this book up and have a lot of their questions answered and be able to get started. Chapter 2, this was a chapter I was super excited to read about, and in this chapter he basically just dives into different historical examples of the occult and witchcraft and spells being used against oppressors and being used as a form of resistance. And I really liked this section because he goes super in depth, different time periods, different regions, all of these examples of how they have used magic for resistance. And I found this just to be a very empowering chapter to see how the people before us used magic and how it's still an option for us today. And of course, he covers very different ranges of things. Something I did appreciate was he did talk about hoodoo and how slaves in the Americas used their own form of magic from their homeland to help them gain control against their white oppressors. He also talks about during World War II how people would hex Nazis and put bindings on Hitler. And then he even talks about how some people would do these magical rituals less for the magical aspect and more for the statement and the attention that they would draw. So for example, during the Vietnam War, there were people who attempted to do a ritual to levitate the Pentagon as a way of kind of showing their upset with the war in Vietnam. So I really liked that section. I feel like it provided a lot of context historically on people using magic and using the occult for resistance. Now in chapter 3, that is where the author goes into more detail about his history specifically with magic for the resistance. So he talks a lot about what led him into binding Trump in 2016, what led to that big movement where all these different people across the US, whether they were in the cult or not, joined in on this binding ritual. And he kind of just talks about what led up to that, what were the elements of it, and then he actually gives the ritual itself for the binding. So something interesting about this, and he mentions it in the book, is that this binding was a continual ritual that was done on a monthly basis. He does have the ritual in here, and they continue to do it to this day. Every waning crescent moon, they continue to do it. And it's something that you can also easily sub out for another person. So if you're in another country where maybe this isn't as relevant, you can easily swap out the details of it to make it relevant to you. Chapter 4. Now this is a section that, although maybe not as relevant to me personally, I am very glad that he included it in this book. This is what I would kind of consider like the beginner overview section. So this is what makes this book so accessible, is it really breaks down everything about spellcrafting and practicing magic, even for someone who has no experience. He breaks down all the tools that you will need, why you use them, where you get them. And beyond just the tools of the craft, he really dives into some of the more foundational work that you need to understand and know to be able to practice witchcraft. For example, he shows you what sigils are, how to create them, how to charge them, what an altar is, how to set up an altar, the different types of altars, how to use tarot within your workings, and also how to dispose of your workings once you're done. He really dives into each of the different aspects of it, and I think that combined with the FAQ section in the beginning makes this a really good resource for beginners actually, because he just answers a lot of the very straightforward questions of how the practice works and the different elements of a practice, like the foundational elements of a practice. In chapter 5, Michael goes over specifically offensive and defensive magic. He talks a lot about the need for protective magic when you are doing this kind of work. Any form of resistance, whether it's a physical resistance or a magical resistance, there is an element of danger to it. Unfortunately, when you are resisting an oppressor, there is always going to be an element of risk, an element of danger incorporated. So he really stresses the need for protection when doing these workings. Now, chapter 6 of this book was a very short chapter. It goes over something he calls guerrilla magic, which is basically magic you are doing away from your altar. It's magic you're doing on the spot, out in the wild, in the moment. Some examples of this are maybe dropping sigils around the Capitol, or putting protection magic around a polling place or a voting center, things like this. It's stuff that you are kind of going out and physically implementing. You're not necessarily just doing a ritual privately in your home by yourself. I think sometimes when we practice magic, we get so used to our patterns of thinking, our ways of thinking, that whenever I see somebody that introduces like a new concept, it kind of reminds me of like, oh yeah, like I can get creative with this. Like I've kind of been in my own little box, but there are all of these things I haven't thought about before. And so I just appreciated that because it kind of helped me think outside of the box a little bit with my magic. Something else that was really interesting about the guerrilla magic section was he kind of talks about the use of rituals in public places to gather the public's attention. So maybe you dress up in very witchy, occult looking outfits, go to the Capitol and do this elaborate ritual where people can see it. And he talks about the value in bringing attention to things, making protest and making resistance entertaining in a way, which at first I was kind of like, like, you know, that's not the point of it. But he does make a good point that people tend to pay more attention to things when they're entertaining, which, you know, as unfortunate as it is true, people do pay more attention when something's entertaining, when something catches their attention. So he really talked about utilizing magic in public spaces is a great way to not only cast those spells, do those workings, but also get the public's attention so that they are paying attention to the issue. They, you know, if you see a group of witches that are gathering in front of your Capitol, you're gonna wonder what it is that they're doing and what's so important that has them, you know, out in public. And I just thought that was a really interesting point that he brought up, was just the visuals of it, the spectacle of it all can also kind of be a method within itself. In chapter 7, he focuses mainly on group magic, finding a community, finding a group. This isn't as relevant for me personally just because I am a solo practitioner, but I do think it can be good. He kind of just shows the different ways that you can find people to connect with, and he also modifies some of the rituals for a group. So moving through this book, there's different ways that you can do spells for a group versus for an individual, which I did think was really good because I think a lot of resistance magic would be well fitted for a group of practitioners, so I do like that he included that. Chapter 8, he focused specifically on self-care and how to take care of yourself when you're doing this work, which I do think is very important. Anyone that has been involved in activism and resistance knows that it can be exhausting. And I think anyone living in the United States right now during 2025 also agrees that really just being aware in general is kind of exhausting. So I appreciated him putting this section in the book to kind of remind us that we have to take care of ourselves in order to put ourselves out there. To be able to resist, we have to have the energy to resist. So I like that he put different techniques in here for kind of, you know, calling your energy back and grounding yourself and really just taking care of yourself. A lot of it was grounding and centering and meditating, and I just really appreciated him kind of acknowledging that in there because I feel like a lot of us tend to feel guilty when we put all of ourselves out there and then we feel drained and like we can't do anything, but it's kind of just human nature. We have to do what we can, and then when our energy runs low, we need to take the time to rest. And so I like that he prioritized that in this book, that rest is a part of resistance. Chapter 9 is really how to prepare yourself for spell work. He talks about different techniques to kind of cleanse yourself, get yourself ready to do some intense spell work. Some things are just like basic cleansings, but he also talks about fasting, which is something I don't personally do, but there are some cultures that do before practicing magic. He also talks about ways just to prepare yourself mentally as well, how to center yourself, ground yourself, cast protections if you feel that that's necessary. He really goes through the basics of setting yourself up for the ritual, which again, I think is fantastic for beginners because it's walking them step by step through this is what you need to do in order to do this work. So again, I think that is amazing. And chapter 10, this was the section I was of course most excited for, which is the chapter containing all of the different workings that he provides. I absolutely love this section because I feel like it really allowed me to be inspired in my own practice and in my own ways of helping out my local community and the greater community at large. He had some really interesting workings here, and he provides context for all of them. It's not necessarily just a list of different spells, but he really gives you the context of where the spell came from, how he's personally used it, how you can adapt it, and I really liked that. Some examples of some of the spells that were in the back here: there's a Share the Wealth spell, there's a spell to protect immigrants, a spell for boosting specific political candidates. There's a lot of different things in here. There's protecting LGBTQ+, hands off reproductive rights, calling in the spirits of a polling place, protect our children circle. There is just so many different spells in here, and it covers so many different issues. And I think once you look at the spells, especially if you're a little bit more experienced in your practice, you can really adapt a lot of these to fit other intentions and other areas that you care about and other issues you care about as well. So chapter 10, I was most excited for, and I'm definitely going to be referencing this book again for that sections. Now that I've kind of gone through the overview of the book, I did want to break down what I did and what I didn't like about this book. And I will start with what I did like. So what I really liked about this book is that it broke everything down in a very easy to understand, digestible way. Whether you are a beginner or you are an advanced practitioner or you are someone who has never even considered practicing witchcraft, you could easily read this book and use this book alone and do resistance magic. Like, it really is kind of all-encompassing within itself. It explains the basics, it explains how you prepare yourself, how you do the working, how you dispose of the working. He really goes through all of it, and so I like that this is kind of an all-in-one guide in terms of just learning how to do the magic itself. I also appreciated that he included a lot of different perspectives in this book as well. It wasn't just a white American perspective. He looked into histories from other countries, other experiences, and I did appreciate him kind of stepping away from the white male American experience for this, just because it gave a lot more context, a lot more inspiration, and I feel like it's just more realistic, and so you could really apply this book outside of the US as well, although it is written more specifically for the US and its current political times. Now, the thing that I didn't like about this book, there was really only one main thing that I didn't like about this book, and it was just that I felt that sometimes the author would include things that were not from his culture, that were not from his practice specifically in the book, or some of the things he said that he utilizes in his practice, but I feel maybe he didn't give the full context for it, and maybe he's not the correct person to give everyone that reads this book permission to include those things in their practice. I will say he was fully respectful when he would talk about these different things, but at the end of the day, even if you are respectful when approaching another culture's, way of practicing magic or another culture's traditions, I would consider that the bare minimum, by the way, when approaching another culture's traditions. Even if you're respectful, at the end of the day, some things are just not meant for everyone. And I know that that can be really hard for some practitioners to accept, but some things just aren't meant for everyone. And I think trying to force those things into your practice when they are not yours can cause way more harm than it can good. So there's just some things I noticed in this that I believe are not open to everybody. And so I want to warn you that although I think this is a good book and it has a ton of good information in it, don't just take it because he includes it in here. And I would say this even if he didn't have certain things in here. Anytime you read a book on magic, you should cross-reference things. You should research more into things before you do them, because really, if you're just relying on one person, that's not super great. So I would just recommend that before you do anything in this book, make sure it aligns with your values morally. And if there's something where you are unsure if you are allowed to do that, if you are allowed to practice that, if you should, if it's respectful, if the people from that culture would want you to, research it first. I think that is just so important. And something that I noticed with this book was he did mention, I think directly, that he thinks it's fine if you just approach things with respect. And although you should approach things with respect, some things are just not meant for you. And so that is my only issue with this book, is there are some things that I don't think were his to include and aren't necessarily his to open up to everyone. And so while reading this, if you do read this, just know that some things are not open to everyone, and do some research before moving forward with including them in your practice. Again, there's nothing wrong with learning about it. Learning is fine, but I think it's different when we start adopting things as our own that belong to other cultures and that aren't even supposed to be known outside of the culture. So just keep that in mind. That was really my only issue with the book. I don't think it negates the entirety of the book. I just think it needs to have a little asterisk next to it when you approach it. But overall, this was a really good book, and I think it can be very inspiring and very helpful for these current times. I know moving forward, I'm definitely going to be referencing this book a lot. I'm going to be opening it and doing some of the rituals in here, adopting them to fit my own needs and the needs of my community. So this has been my review of Magic for the Resistance by Michael M. Hughes. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you liked this, let me know. I am totally open to doing more book review videos in the future. I am always reading books and I love talking about books, so totally open for me. I have a few on my radar right now that I'm working through that I would love to be able to make videos about. So just drop a comment below if that's something you'd like to see more of. And if you have read this book, feel free to give me your opinion in the comments below. Let me know if you agree with me, if you disagree with me, or if you know books that are similar to this, because I did enjoy this book quite a bit. But that is all I have for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you want to see more content like this or more of me in general, feel free to subscribe to my channel and leave a like on this video. But that's all I have for now. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.